first of all, thank you. I mean, this movie is really catching fire, McFarland, and I know that right as the movie's about to be released, everyone's doing interviews, going to events, screenings, and all that. So I appreciate your time. How did you get into the movie industry?
I've had a very steady climb, and I literally started from the beginning, where an actor would normally start, which is the theater. And I discovered acting in high school. I realized that I loved writing. Poetry was my first creative outlet, and my life was a little difficult at that time, especially, and writing and just being creative kind of opened up my mind to more things beyond what I was surrounded by, in my own world. And then I thought, well, I want to write. And there was a really great theater program at Santa Monica High School where I went. And I said, well, if I want to write plays and I want to write screenplays someday, I should find out what actors go through. And that's how I got into an acting class. And that's how I met my best friend, who encouraged me to go through with it and learn. And I met Dr. Frank Ford, who is now retired, and he became my mentor. He became a father figure that I didn't have at the time. And I guess kind of like in McFarland, this person, who wasn't a part of my world, all of a sudden comes in and sees something in me that I didn't even see in me. Mm-hmm. He encouraged me to go for it, and he said, I think you've got something. You're good at this. You can do this. And he taught me. He made me believe that I could do something like that. After high school, years later, I went through some personal issues with almost losing my grandmother, who was my mother, who raised me. And I realized, what am I going to do? I need to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. She was almost, at that time, she almost passed away, and then I was able to take care of her for a little bit. She got better. She went back to live with my dad, and I was like, well, what am I doing? I had actually a nice desk job, and I actually quit it to take care of my grandma. And then I said, okay, what do I do now? I got to just go back to it. And something was just missing, and I remembered what acting had meant to me at one point on the stage, and that's how I went back into it. So I went back to study, fully study. Just went and took nothing but theater classes, did plays, and then eventually when I left college, I didn't. I got back into it a little later in life, so I thought, I don't want to go spend another 4 years at a arts college, or because right. Some of the other students who were younger, they were they were going to Juilliard and they were going to all these other schools, and I thought, well, I was told by one of my directors there, you should just go out there, just start doing it.
When you first got into it, though, were you ever concerned about the obstacles as a Latino in the entertainment industry? Were you concerned about the stereotype roles? They're probably just going to get me as the dishwasher in the background, and never get any real time.
Yeah, specifically when I did make that transition, because I did come from the theater, and I was used to just going for the role that I liked. If I read a play, or I did Shakespeare. And when I would read, when I went out for when I did Othello, I went for the role of Othello, and this is the role I want to play, or this is the the play I want to be involved in. And that's where theater has an advantage over film, that you can actually walk into a theater and say, I'm going to go after that role, and if you're the best actor for that role, for the most part, that's open.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And in film, so when I got into film, when I decided to do it professionally and get into it, I knew what I was going to face, because I knew that my resume didn't matter anymore. They didn't care what plays I'd done and what roles I'd played. They were just going to look at my face,
right.
And they were going to look at
you need to fit the characters.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't even get called in, right, unless you see, there's a breakdown, and these are the roles, and then you or your agent, whatever, they see and say, okay, well, he fits, and there may be a really good role for me, but if it doesn't say open to any ethnicity or specific
right.
Latino, they may not even submit you, and if you do, they probably won't even call you in. So I knew that was coming. So I guess for me, at least I didn't go into it blindly. I knew. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to start at that point. They're going to bring me in for the dishwasher, the garden, and all that.
Right.
So, look, I knew it. But that was my choice. This is what I want to do. and I knew it was like, hey, you know what? I got to work my way up the
And
ladder.
currently, you actually have played some pretty good roles. You know, I saw your reel, and you've played a doctor.
Yeah.
You've played a cop. You know, which is pretty cool. You know, normally,
Yeah.
like you know, we say they get the stereotypes, but you've
Yeah.
been a cop, you've been a doctor. How did you land a role on McFarland?
Well, I think just like anything in life, there's a little bit of luck, and then there's a lot of work behind it. When I went in for my first audition, it was for like a small role, and when I was there, I actually asked, and that was just from experience, you know, because I looked at the breakdowns, and then from what I read in the script, I said, you know, can I ask you about the father? There's a couple fathers in this, and they said, oh, yeah, you know what? I think we may be able to bring you in for this, and they said, we'll let you know. A week went by, and all of a sudden they brought me in for this father role, Senor Diaz. And I remember getting the sides thinking, okay, there'll be a couple lines, and then I saw this beautiful monologue. And I said, that's me, I know these people, I know this type of man, this type of father. And that comes from my experiences in life, from playing other roles similar to it. And so I went in there just knowing this person, knowing what it represented. It's this father who is a hard worker, and his kids are trying to, you know, expand their horizons, even if it's just through a sport. And he just wants them to work,
Right.
you know.
And that brings the next question. We've talked about this. You know, do you think the fact that it's surrounded by a sport amplifies, you know, the interest for people to want to watch it? Because, you know, here in the U.S., you know, we love sports.
Yeah.
So is it the fact that it's, you know, surrounded around a sport theme that amplifies the interest?
Absolutely. That's just the way the world works. I mean, you know, people love sports. People, even in school, you know, you were asking me earlier about academics and other films that maybe focus more on the academic side, and they don't do as well, like Spare Parts. But people will go to a high school football game,
Right.
or basketball, and then
Sounds
yeah,
fair.
and you know what? Track and field or cross country, those don't get a lot of people to follow it either. You know,
Right.
nobody. You know, they have to fundraise a lot more.
When it comes to different type of movies, you know, kind of the same theme though. You know, the success stories. There's this one, McFarland, and then there's the one with George Lopez. Do you think that plays a factor in the fact that the main character here is Kevin Costner, and then the main character in the other one is George Lopez?
Yeah.
What do you think the contrast is there, besides the ethnicity, of course?
It does. It's the business side. It's the fact that, you know, now movies don't get made unless they have a huge star behind it. And George Lopez, of course, is a big star. He's already done a lot of great films. On the business side, you know, maybe he doesn't, you know, there's around Hollywood there's charts that they actually look at, and they have like certain people and see how much they're worth and how much they draw internationally as well. So sometimes we have you know, stars that are big here and that we appreciate, you know, like El Señor Edward Olmos, you know, a legend, and you know, I somebody that I respect. And I'll just tell you, I have a friend who's a filmmaker, and a young filmmaker, and he's doing really well. And he at one point had pitched to have Edward Olmos to bring him in for a role, the main role. And I remember that was the first time I was actually very sad to see that he brought up this thing about, like, there's a list, and they look at, you know, international recognition and appeal and money and all that stuff.
Right.
And Edward Olmos wasn't good enough on that list. And I'm sure El Señor Olmos probably knows this, but, you know, he does things his own way, and I respect that. But that's the kind of world that's out there. So,
Right.
you know, when you put Kevin Costner, who's also, you know, a great actor, and he's
Right.
worked his, you know, he's got the work, and
Right.
he's done it. That's what sells. But, you know, we just need more people out there, more Latinos that have that power, and I think it will get there because we are international. Latinos are international.
Yeah, definitely. And that's actually my next question. You know, how do we go to the next level to get more of these movies produced? You know,
It's so easy. We have to go to the movies and see our own stories. And look, I want Hollywood to be successful. I want more movies to be made in LA. And if more movies are made in LA, there's more Latinos and there's more stories of our own here. If LA really wants to make more movies here, we've got plenty of stories right here. Let's bring up LA and in all its facets, you know. So people need to go support the movies. I don't want to tell people don't go see a movie because it doesn't have a Latino in it, but I don't know, maybe we need to be more proactive. Maybe we need to write letters to these heads and say, hey, you know, we really love that blockbuster film.
Right.
But I have 4 Latino kids and they don't see themselves on there. There's, you know, we still love that product. We want to see the action films. But how about throwing in some Latinos in there?
What do you take from this movie?
I'm taking the real part of it, because I have now spent quite a bit of time with the real families behind this. Paul Diaz, the character that I play, and all his sons who are featured in the film, and even those people that aren't. I've met a lot of people in McFarland, and I see, you know, what it means to their community. I was just there a couple of days ago, and we were helping to build a playground for McFarland, and it was so cool to see a lot of the Disney people there and volunteers, some of the young cast members and the real brothers. We were all there like digging holes and, you know, making benches and putting up this playground, and that'll stay there, and they're working to help that town, specifically McFarland. You know, you don't want it to be one of those stories where you hear later, oh, McFarland, it was used for this movie. So I take the people I've met, because this is a real story, and there are so many more, but this is one.
Right.
And maybe this will be the start of that. So I'm taking the hope that we're going to have more of these pictures on posters where look at all those brown hands and these brown kids.
50 Shades of Brown.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so, and look, Coach White is a real person too. And we all have had a coach or a person, like I had Dr. Ford, a mentor. We all have people to help us along the way. And sometimes they do come from different cultures. And
you know, for me, to be able to sit here and do this interview with you based on a movie like that, you know, it's my objective with what I've created with Urban Melody TV. You know, there's programs out there, there's shows or movies where they show certain lifestyle, certain stereotype, and people always tell me, well, why are you complaining about it? You know, it's a reality. But then, just like you said, you know the real side of this. This too is a reality. Unfortunately, we're surrounded by such other negative reality that it creates that mindset.
Yeah.
You know, this year is a success reality that's out there, but no one focuses on it. So the fact that you're sitting here and we're talking about it, and if we can, you know, encourage our people to go out there and watch this movie, so they can realize that, you know, success stories as such is also a Latino reality, and we need to focus on that and change the mindset of the youth. Just, you know, say, hey, that's a reality. They did it. They became successful, and now you became a movie, then I can too. Versus, you see that almost? That's a reality, you know. So, you know, I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
You know, do this interview, and I wish you much success.
Thank you so much.
In all that you do, and hopefully you give me a call and say, hey, you know, his father, a role in the movie, he has tattoos, so come on down.
Definitely.
Gracias.
Thank you. Go see the movie, guys.